Martin Luther King Jr. was not just an American icon. He was a beacon of hope for oppressed people around the globe. With a steadfast commitment to nonviolence and justice, King's influence reached far beyond the borders of the United States, igniting a ripple effect that inspired civil rights movements worldwide. Through his words, actions, and unyielding courage, Martin Luther King Jr. became a symbol of universal freedom and dignity. His legacy reminds us that the fight for equality transcends geography and culture. A leader born for change. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, on January 15, 1929, Martin Luther King Jr. grew up witnessing the brutal realities of racial segregation. His experiences fueled a passion for justice, and he turned to education and faith to build the foundation of his life's mission. Influenced by Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance, King believed in fighting injustice with moral fortitude rather than violence. His leadership of the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955 catapulted him to national fame. The year-long boycott began after Rosa Parks, a seamstress and civil rights activist, refused to give up her seat to a white passenger. King's powerful speeches and unwavering resolve united African Americans in Montgomery and eventually led to the desegregation of public buses. This victory was more than a local triumph. It set the tone for a larger civil rights movement in the U.S. and inspired activists around the globe. Inspiring a global movement, King's work in the United States echoed internationally, particularly in countries facing colonialism, apartheid, and systemic discrimination. His philosophy of nonviolent resistance and his ability to mobilize masses resonated with leaders and movements worldwide. India, a shared legacy with Gandhi. King's pilgrimage to India in 1959 was a pivotal moment in his journey as a global leader. Deeply inspired by Gandhi's role in India's struggle for independence, King sought to learn more about nonviolent resistance firsthand. During his trip, he met with Indian leaders and engaged with communities that had resisted British colonial rule. King once remarked, "I left India more convinced than ever before that the method of nonviolent resistance is the most potent weapon available to oppressed people in their struggle for freedom." The cross-pollination of ideas between King and the Indian independence movement became a source of inspiration for other leaders fighting oppression. King's visit cemented his place as not just an American figure, but as a global advocate for justice. South Africa, a voice against apartheid. South Africa, under the oppressive system of apartheid, found inspiration in King's speeches and strategies. His words reached activists like Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, who admired King's dedication to equality. Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison for his resistance to apartheid, once referenced King's impact, saying that King's dream of equality was a universal aspiration. During the global anti-apartheid movement, King's philosophy served as a moral compass. Activists worldwide adopted his tactics of peaceful protest, from boycotts to international pressure campaigns, ultimately leading to the dismantling of apartheid in 1994. Europe fighting discrimination and injustice. In Europe, King's influence extended to movements challenging racial and ethnic discrimination. His speeches were translated into multiple languages, providing hope to marginalized communities. In the United Kingdom, his work resonated with activists fighting for the rights of Caribbean immigrants who faced discrimination and economic disparity. King's dream became a shared vision, inspiring people to stand together for inclusion and fairness. Real-life examples of impact. One of the most profound examples of King's global influence is the civil rights movement in Northern Ireland during the 1960s. Activists in Northern Ireland, fighting for Catholic civil rights in a Protestant-majority country, explicitly modeled their strategies on King's methods. They staged peaceful marches, sit-ins, and protests inspired by the U.S. civil rights struggle. In 1968, the People's Democracy March in Northern Ireland, which sought to address housing and voting rights for Catholics, bore a striking resemblance to King's Selma to Montgomery marches. The participants faced violence, but their determination reflected King's teachings of resilience in the face of injustice. Words that still echo. King's most iconic speech, "I Have a Dream," delivered during the 1963 March on Washington, became an anthem for human rights worldwide. Its vision of a world where people are judged by their character rather than their skin color transcends cultural and national boundaries. The speech was quoted by activists in various countries, from Australia to Brazil, underscoring its universal relevance. King's message was not just about racial equality, but about human dignity, justice, and peace for all. As he stated in his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech in 1964, "I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. A legacy that endures." Martin Luther King Jr. left the world a roadmap for peaceful resistance and enduring hope. His ability to turn local struggles into universal causes proved that the fight for equality is not confined to one nation or one era. Today, his teachings continue to inspire movements for climate justice, women's rights, and LGBTQ+ equality, proving that his dream is alive and evolving. King's life and legacy remind us that true change begins with courage, compassion, and a refusal to accept injustice. His work is a call to action, urging us to fight for a world where freedom and equality are not privileges, but rights for all. King's vision was not just about dreaming, it was about waking up and taking action. And through his example, the world has learned that even in the darkest times, hope can lead to transformative change.